Good morning. We'll go ahead and call this regular Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Also sitting as all special taxing districts. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I need to work on that.
Rise the lines. Can you please lead us?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need to work on that sound. It's like Radio Gallo. Like that. Everything. Yeah, there's a lot
We're holding today's meeting in the Grand
You
Canyon.
know that?
Okay, due to technical difficulties, we can
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for a future discussion and decision at a future date. Public comments may be made in person or submitted by email at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. The email forms of public comments will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read out loud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that started at 9 a.m. Christy, do we have any?
I have one. Yes, I have one. This is from Jana Martin. And she says, we're both opposed to this development. She's referring rezoning case 23-07. That's scheduled for the September 18th agenda. She's also referring to minor amendment number 2206 and rezoning case 22-24. I don't know when those last two are scheduled, but she says, we are both opposed to this development and our rezoning in the Fortuna Wash. Please send me the information on the proposed zoning in the Fortuna Wash, specifically include, and then she lists those three. She says, we are opposed to the development without first getting the infrastructure in place to support the homes that are already here. I am totally tired of smelling other people's poop every evening because the lift station is not operating correctly. The last barbecue swim party we had to eat inside again because of the smell coming from the lift station in the wash. We can't have our windows open in the evening because it will smell up our home. I believe we should get a substantial tax break on the taxes we pay for our home because the smell is so bad from the lift station. The Board of Supervisors should be intervening with the lift station and getting them to comply so they're not stinking up our community. Thanking you in advance for your time and attention. Jana and Martin.
Thank you.
And just for info, I've already sent them that information
Okay.
and spoke with Foothills Utilities.
Thank you.
And I do have a speaker form, Gail Castricone.
Good morning. My name is Gail Castricone. I am the neighborhood advocate for the Avenue B and C Colonial Butterfly Project. Some of you may be familiar with the broken window theory that can transform a slum and blight neighborhood into a thriving community. That is what our Avenue B and C Steering Committee and the residents are hoping for. We need collaboration between all of the county agencies that have the power to enforce the code violations in the Colonia. The health and welfare is threatened when county code enforcement takes long periods of time to resolve the issues at hand. Our greatest challenge is landlords that have unkept property and those that take advantage of the welfare system by getting rental assistance in a dwelling that is substandard. Case in point, Bam Park. After the last several years, crime has escalated in the BNC Colonia. The Sheriff's Department has been patrolling our area more often now. We want them to know that we appreciate their presence. It gives us hope that someday families will be able to take walks without fear and being confronted by squatters and drug addicts. Our community wants to embrace the broken window theory to improve the quality of life for our families. The techniques that should be used are removing abandoned vehicles and the abandoned trailers, cleaning up dumped items and litter, quickly painting over graffiti, crack down on drug users and dealers. Please advise staff to read and refer to the broken window theory to deter any more of this lemon area. A big thank you to Supervisor Pancrazzi and others for helping us move forward on the revitalization of the Avenue B and C Colonia. In closing, I want to quote Martin Luther King Jr. Our lives begin and end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Just to let you know, I will never be silent. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you for your perseverance in this.
Anybody else from the public? I'll go ahead and leave the call to the public open. Move on to presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustments. No legal action will be taken. Any appointments?
No.
None. All right. Well, we'll do proclamation number 1. Chairman proclaims September 16, 2023 as Mexican Independence Day in Yuma County. And we'll go ahead and read both of them, the Mexican Independence Day and then Hispanic Heritage Month, and Dulce Maria Valle Alvarez, Consul of Mexico, here in Yuma, will say a few words.
Right.
All right.
Do you want to say a few words first or after?
After.
After, okay. Despacito. Voy a leer la proclamación. I'm going to read the proclamation proclaiming the day of September 16, 2023 as Mexican Independence Day in Yuma County. Whereas on September 16, 1810, Father Miguel Hidalgo gave the memorable Grito de Dolores speech in Dolores, Guanajuato, Mexico, which marked the beginning of a long journey towards independence. This day is celebrated as Mexican Independence Day. And whereas on August 24, 1821, the Treaty of Córdoba was signed, giving birth to a new and independent nation led by Agustín de Iturbide, who was appointed after leading the victorious Trigarante army into Mexico City. And whereas Yuma County has a historic relationship with Mexico based on a strong social, cultural, and economic ties, and whereas this family-friendly and civic celebration is designed to educate the border community about Mexican history, empower and serve as a link between the Mexican community and the local nonprofit organization and services, and whereas the Mexican community is part of the growing Hispanic population in the county, is an important and active participant in Yuma culture, and economy. And whereas the Mexican Independence Day is a day for Yuma citizens of Mexican heritage to celebrate their culture by honoring the rich history, industriousness, and spirit of Mexicans. Now, therefore, I, Martin Porcia, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, proclaim this day of September 16, 2023, to be Mexican Independence Day in Yuma County. Everything else is just formal.
All right.
So, this is it. Thank you.
We'll do Chairman proclaims September 15 to October 15 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Yuma County.
Yes. Proclaiming September 15th through October 15th, 2023 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Yuma County. Whereas on August 17th, 1988, Public Law 100-402 authorized President Reagan to establish September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate a legacy of traditions, rich culture, and honor the significant achievements of our Hispanic and Latino American communities. And whereas Hispanics are the largest ethnic minority group in the country and make valuable contributions to the community in business, industry, government, education and sciences, arts, and faith. And whereas Hispanics have served with distinction in military conflicts since the Revolutionary War and continue to defend our country today. as members of the armed forces. These brave men and women bring us honor, and we are grateful for their service and sacrifice. And whereas the respective backgrounds of Hispanic and Latino Americans are an integral part of Yuma County and have made enormous contributions to our diverse society by sharing their talents, culture, traditions, and their deep connections to family values. Therefore, I, Martine Porteous, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, proclaim the month of September 15th through October 15th, 2023, to be Hispanic Heritage Month in Yuma County.
Thank you, Lynn. Consul?
I will mix Spanish and English, but I will give you for the record my intervention in English. Para mí es un honor estar aquí. For me it's an honor and a pleasure to be here para recibir las dos proclamas, la proclama del Día de la Independencia de México en el Condado de Yuma y la proclama del mes del hispano en el Condado de Yuma. The proclamation of the County Hispanic Heritage Month is very special. As Mrs. Pancrazi said, it was started in 1968 with 1 week. And 20 years later, it passed to 1 month, as she said, from 50 September to 15 October, with the president was Mr. Ronald Reagan, if I remember, in 1988. Really, I would like to thank the Board of County Supervisors for highlighting the contribution of the Mexican community to the Yuma County's culture and economic. Es una megaregión donde realmente los lazos económicos, culturales y familiares son muy fuertes. It's a mega region, very important mega region. Respecto de la proclamación de la independencia, es sumamente importante para el Estado mexicano. The proclamation for the Independence Day is very important for the Mexican state. Tiene un gran significado, no solamente para los mexicanos en territorio nacional, sino sobre todo para los mexicanos que viven fuera, ya sea que tengan doble nacionalidad, triple nacionalidad, cuádruple nacionalidad, que existe, o que sean simples mexicanos en el exterior. It's very important for all the Mexicans. Y esto, estaba leyendo esta mañana, I was reading this morning, que actualmente el 20% de la población en Estados Unidos es de origen latino-hispano, 20% of the population in the United States. Hay al menos 13 estados en Estados Unidos que tienen más de 1 millón de habitantes de origen latino-hispano. I don't mean only Mexicans. I say Latino-Hispanos, it's Sudamerica, Caribbean, and Spain. That's very important, I think, for the contribution of all this population to the economy of this country. That's very important. Well, saying this, I quiero aprovechar esta oportunidad. I also like to take this opportunity para invitarlos a la celebración de la fiesta nacional. I want to invite everybody to the celebration of the National Day. Va a tener lugar el 15 de septiembre a las 5 de la tarde en el Centro Cívico de Yuma. We want to honorar o ¿sí? Resaltar the contribution of Sonora and Baja California. So, hemos dedicado el mes patrio de septiembre a estos dos estados. For that reason, during the celebration of the 15th September, we will have 1 hour of degustation from some food from Sonora and Baja California, some products as wine, for example. There will be some businessmen from my country, and I hope you will be there to enjoy this. And after that, we will have some music from these states. Por supuesto, El Grito, con la banda de guerra de la Universidad de Baja California. Y mariachis we will have, y algunas danzas de Sonora y Baja California. I hope you will enjoy it, and really, really will be honored to have you in this event, not only the members of the board, but also all the public that is here. You are also invited. Thank you very much for these proclamations, both proclamations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dulce Consul. So that invitation is for Friday, the 15th at 5 p.m. at the Civic Center. And there'll be some food, music, and art. So we're all welcome to attend. And we'll go ahead and take a picture, give you the proclamation.
I know.
Conste que acá tengo el que otro de acá.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's right, not first. I remember that.
I've got my wallet.
We'll go ahead and move on to another proclamation. Sherman proclaims September 2023 as Library Card Sign-Up Month in Yuma County.
And I've got that.
You got that now.
Okay. Proclaiming September 2023 as Library Card Sign-Up Month. Whereas libraries play a crucial role in the education and development of children, from story times for preschoolers to college and career planning for high school students, fostering literacy and a love of reading. And whereas libraries are welcoming and inclusive spaces for people of all backgrounds to learn together and engage with one another across cultural, ethnic, generational, and economic lines, strengthening the social fabric of the communities they serve. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all. And whereas libraries contribute to a strong local economy by providing access to the technology and training that are critical to the success of job seekers, entrepreneurs, and students. And whereas a library card sparks creativity and empowers all people to explore their new passions and interests and pursue a path of lifelong learning. Therefore, I, Martin Porches, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, proclaim the month of September 2023 as Library Card Sign-Up Month and encourage everyone to sign up for their own library cards today.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. And we have Sarah. There she is. Good morning.
Thank you so much for always supporting Library Card Sign-Up Month. In addition to getting a library card, having a library card, we have a wonderful Show Your Card program where local businesses have agreed to either offer a discount at their business, or they donated a gift card or another gift for library card holders to take advantage of. So we want to encourage everybody to get their library card, renew their library card. We've made it as easy as possible. You just need to bring in a photo ID with your current Yuma County address and something else that verifies that address.
I
Thank
see,
you.
Sarah, you brought mine, right?
I
Yeah, I don't
did.
use that one. The only one I don't lose.
You never lose it.
Yeah, let's take a picture.
Need a wallet like that with the chairman next to me. This is gonna make you feel like that. Let me keep that card. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna lose that one. Está ahí con mi nombre.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Keep them pay attention. And we got one more proclamation. Chairman proclaims the month of September 2023 as National Preparedness Month in Yuma County. Mr. Lance?
Yes. Whereas National Preparedness Month creates an important opportunity for every resident of Yuma County to prepare for and protect their homes and communities from any type of emergency, including natural disasters, public health emergencies, man-made disasters, and potential terrorist attacks. And September is National Preparedness Month, and we encourage all Yuma County residents and businesses to take important preparedness steps to prepare for emergencies for themselves, their families, and their community. And the 2023 National Preparedness Campaign focuses on preparing older adults for disaster, specifically older adults from communities that are disproportionately affected by the all-hazard event, which continue to threaten the nation. And emergency preparedness is a responsibility of every resident of Yuma County, and all residents are urged to make preparedness a priority and work together to ensure individuals, families, and communities are prepared for disasters and emergencies of any type. Now therefore, Yuma County Board of Supervisors hereby does proclaim the month of September 2023 to be National Preparedness Month and encourage all residents of Yuma County to develop an emergency plan and work together, creating a more prepared society. All residents of Yuma County are also encouraged to participate in the citizens preparedness activities and are asked to review the READY campaign's website at ready.gov or listo.gov in Espanol and become better prepared.
Thank you. And we have Tony,
And
Diana,
Russell.
For the emergency.
And a bunch of emergency management folks.
Where's the shovel?
Mhm.
hello, morning.
We're just members of the board, Tony. Tony's going to leave me alone up here. Preparedness takes a community. It's anticipating. It's being ready to respond. It's coming together and helping a community come back from an emergency or disaster and hopefully come back stronger. So I will defer to Tony because we have, it's a community effort, and we have from public health, we have our preparedness team, you have your emergency management, and I know there's tons of volunteers in the back. So I will sit down.
Oh, no, that's fine. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this morning I was out talking to the Sunrise Optimist Club, and I talked to them about continuity and planning. And that's just one aspect of that. As you can see in this room, we have, not only do we have CERT members, we have ham radio operators, we also have our partners. We have the Red Cross, and we've asked them to be here too, because when we talk about readiness, we talk about preparedness, this month incorporates everybody, not only first responders such as law enforcement, firefighters, our public works, our public health. It's important that we all do our part. As the storms we just had in the last couple of weeks, a lot of people prepared. They did sandbags. The first storm didn't come through, and when I got through doing an interview the next day, I said, just because this one didn't hit us as bad doesn't mean we're not going to have one tomorrow or the next week. Unfortunately, I guess I wish I could have predicted the future because I would have won the lottery.
That was your fault.
That
was your fault then, huh?
We ended up with that rain last week, and it came back. So hopefully a lot of that preparedness people did for the tropical storm Hillary prepared them for this rainstorm we had recently. And fortunately, we fared semi-well. I know people had damages, roofs, things like that, uprooted trees, flooding. but we got through it, and we want to continue to have that partnership, not only with our first responders and our nonprofit organization, but also the community, and we want them to be prepared as well. So take this time, view those websites. If you have questions, you can reach out to Public Health, you can reach out to us, and we'll guide anyone that needs assistance with that. Thank you.
You know, I just want to say, with that tropical storm, I think this is how, a perfect example how Yuma County and with all the entities, how they got prepared and let know the public for sandbags and alerts as where flooding occurs, or that is great. I mean, that's a perfect example to know that we're prepared.
Yeah, and in my particular case, I was just really surprised about how different things are from county, from community to community. I mean, Yuma, Somerton, San Luis, Welton, Martinez Lake, I mean, they dealt with different emergencies. I mean, there was some flooding on the road out to the northern part. There was a lot of flooding out in the outlying areas. There was damage in Yuma. There was damage in San Luis, damage in Somerton. It rained more in Yuma sometimes. It rained less in San Luis. There was a sighting of a tornado in one of the areas, which is something we haven't ever seen. And so it just goes to show that being prepared, you know, it's always a best practice instead of dealing with it once it's after, once it happens. And the fact that most of us thought it couldn't happen, it's been proven wrong. It can happen. Anything can happen. And, you know, I always thought that here you have to prepare for very few emergencies. I mean, what happens in the desert? I mean, you get too hot, right? But no, it is a very, very different world out there that is coming to us in ways that we probably didn't expect altogether. This has been one of those years that just proves that point. So I'm just feeling grateful that we've got such a great team of people that prepare for emergencies. They're not just human emergencies. Sometimes there's weather emergencies. Sometimes there are emergencies that we technically don't expect. But what happened in Imperial County, you know, what happened in Yuma County, what happened in the northern portion of the county just goes to show just how big the county is, but how well prepared it is. Tony, thank you very much, and thank you to the health department and the team in Public Works and everybody that stepped up. And again, thank Ian for just keeping us informed of what's going on. I mean, sometimes you feel like you're a little bit of the end over there, a little bit on the other end, and things happen in the other end that you have nothing to do with. I mean, so it's good to know that in all of Yuma County, there's a sense of preparedness works.
Well, and I'd like to thank, like I said, Public Works, emergency responders, all of our volunteers out here that respond in times of need like that. You got to remember, they also have families, and they're leaving their families to come out and help the public. So they do a large sacrifice for the community, and we can't thank you enough.
Now, can we get all the team up here and?
Yeah, can we get the team up here?
Yep.
All the volunteers
Everybody
too?
up here.
We'll stay up here and.
There's too many of us to get in a picture. Nothing to be said about eating too much on the weekend.
Are we just gonna stand back here?
Yeah, I think we're gonna stand back. Be the tornado he is. So let you be the tornado that you are. And we'll poner tus morros, chicas. Thanks for the guys.
Thank you, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for all you guys
Thank you
do.
guys.
Behind us.
I do.
Right, so get closer.
Yeah, we should be right in the front.
Gonna be down the middle, right there.
Hey, Shirley, I'll stand back here.
Get in tight.
Get everybody.
Tony didn't get confused. Gotta be serious about this.
Get us all in.
All right, guys,
Tony.
thank you very much.
Thank all your people out there. Thank you, guys.
All right, Tony. Thank you, President Tony.
Go ahead.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ahora sí, vamos a darle gas.
Cody.
Didn't get it passed.
We'll go ahead and move on to consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless the board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. And we have items 1 to 13.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move out item number 10.
Number 10. Anybody else? Any other? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve items 1 through 13 with the exception of 10.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve items 1 to 13 with the exception of number 10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10.
Okay, the item is to authorize the sheriff to purchase 10 2023 Ford F-150s 4x4 from Alexander Ford for an amount not to exceed $434,754. I just wanted to sort of highlight that the effort that the sheriff's department makes and everybody makes to try to keep our business local. And I think that we get a lot of pressure because we don't normally, normally we don't buy the large amounts of purchases that we're doing sometimes from local people. And we have to explain all the time that we go through state bidding processes, and sometimes we don't get no local bids. We have to go through that. So to me, it's a little anticlimactic, but I want to acknowledge the fact that in this particular case, because the case, as was the case in number 9, in this particular case, the purchases are made for a local dealer, which I think is, trying to keep the money local is of high importance to us. So we recognize the efforts the sheriff made and everybody makes to keep the money local. And we congratulate Ford, what's it, son? Alexander Ford from Yuma for being able to get a contract. We hope that most of these contracts, and not all these contracts, can be kept local. I think that that's part of a concerted effort to try to keep the money locally, keep our taxes local. So thank you very much, the sheriff, and I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the purchase of those 10 vehicles.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve item number 10 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to discussion and action items. Item number 1, Public Health Service District. Diane.
Morning, Chairman Porches, members of the board, Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. Just a few brief updates. In the spirit of preparedness, you've seen the temperature extremes. We've had a lot of continuous weather advisories, and wanted to just let the public know that I know that we're all enjoying, this is when we're all out there doing our recreational water activities because it's fun to be out there. It's a way to cool off. But just to remind people that while you're doing that, it's important to remember that, especially when we have large crowds and a higher concentration of people, or when we've had recent rains, that there's always things living in the water, right? That's nature. So we have bacteria, we have all sorts of stuff in there that when the temperature gets really hot, really fuels that growth, and having crowds really adds to it. So, you'll get reports of people having mostly GI illnesses, stomach aches. Sometimes there's like some skin irritations, or depending on whether you inhale the water. So we want to remind people again about prevention. Go out there, enjoy the water, enjoy your recreational activities, remember to properly maintain your pools, your spas, even water pads, and have that awareness. And if you're in the river, just respect nature, have that safety precaution. And again, we want to tell people, like, if you've been sick, please refrain from enjoying the pool or enjoying the river or the lake. If you're out there with your children, make sure you take them on bathroom breaks regularly. Make sure that you change their diapers in the bathroom, not poolside or by the river, because all that stuff ends up in there. Shower and wash your hands after you've used the river. Avoid jumping in like forcefully. There's things like amoeba in there that can go up your nose. We want you to be safe. So again, and also you need to check the depth. We have a lot of injuries. People jump in, maybe head first and don't realize that it's shallow. So we want to prevent those injuries. And again, along with that, mosquitoes. So those rains caused a lot of pooling water, and we have a lot of retention basins. So I want to encourage people to check their yards. If you have a water feature, if you have a little fountain, or if you have those little like hummingbird feeders or anything that retains water, mosquitoes can breed in a capful, like a bottle cap. So, and with the weather extremes, they'll wait for the right time and hatch. And so there's a lot of nuisance mosquitoes, but we've had a lot of activity of disease-causing mosquitoes also. And so if you're out there, they're most active during the dawn and evening hours. So just again, have that precaution: wear long pants or use appropriate things to protect yourself. Flu. Our flu vaccine was delayed. We just got it on Friday, so we're gearing up to start those clinics. Actually, if you call our office, you can schedule an appointment. We're doing walk-ins during regular hours, and then we'll schedule those outlying clinics again. We'll start partnering with those community agencies to make sure we go out to those rural areas so that transportation, ease of access is not an issue. So we finally got our mobile unit, so yay. I know, we're gonna have to drive it over. I know, so great. So we have it, and so we'll be using that to go out there. Again, we recommend that anybody over the age of 6 months get a flu shot. The effectiveness of the vaccine depends on the formulation that they do and the type of virus that's circulating. But we've gotten it pretty close the last couple of seasons. Again, the goal of the vaccine is to prevent serious illness and to avoid hospitalizations, because we don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. So if you get your flu vaccine and you do get sick, your symptoms tend to be milder, and that's what we want. The vaccine is just priming your body to be ready to respond. We recommend, again, September and October, the prime times to get your flu vaccine, but you can, after October, perfectly fine to keep getting them, especially if you're at risk. So again, a reminder, call the health department, set up your appointment. Also, we'll be going to outlying clinics. If you need more information, our number's 928-317-4550. Also, schools and your different doctor's offices. If you have any specific question, reach out to your healthcare provider or call our office, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's been a lot of, I've gotten calls. I mean, it seems to be like it's out there in the community that COVID's coming back.
Yes.
That you have to stay in, that you have to wear a mask. Where are we with the numbers? I mean, I hope this doesn't become like a weekly report, but where are we with the numbers? What's the truth out there? What is?
So our COVID numbers have been going up. We have a new variant of Omicron. It's called Eris, and it's circulating, really quickly. So we're seeing higher than normal numbers. Our goal, again, is to not overwhelm the healthcare system. So we know that one of the reasons is every time this virus mutates, it becomes more effective at evading the immunity. And so what happens is, whether you've gotten vaccine immunity or you've gotten sick and recovered and you have, infection-acquired immunity, every time it mutates, the configuration is different. So the virus becomes more effective at spreading. So far, this month, we've seen a higher than average than what we've been seeing so far. Let's see, we had a 20, depending on how you do the numbers, and that's why you have to be careful, but we're seeing like 170% increase.
I know that. That
Yeah.
sounds like a real.
And that's again because we are congregating, we're living our best lives, right? We're enjoying the outdoors, we're back in school, and it's a new virus. So if you've gotten any iteration of the virus before, this is new. So you can get infected with a version and get reinfected. The good news is that we are having much fewer deaths, significantly lower number of deaths, because the people are getting ready to recognize the symptoms. And so we want to tell people, get tested. We are still providing free tests at the library, so.
The problem
Yes.
is that when everybody says, we've got 150% increase, and you don't know what that June was the lowest number that we've ever had. When you talk percentages and you mention things like, well, we came back, we have like 100% more deaths at the hospital, we have 2 and now we have 4, or something like that, it leaves that impression that it's really a major comeback. So what I like to see or hear from you is, okay, we had 80 last month and we have 150 this month.
Okay.
Or we, compared to 4,300 a month, like, whatever.
Last year.
I don't want to do that. I just want to appease this fear in people that is coming back that way. And when you say 150, 170% increase from last month, you says, we don't know what last month was.
Fair point. So we had 96 cases last month. We have 256 cases, so definitely on the increase. And I expect that to be higher because we're not even done with the month. So, so I mean, and so it's carryover. So you're seeing those increases exponentially, and it'll get higher again. And again, it's because people are getting tested, and so they have that level of awareness. This is only lab reported cases. So if you got one of those test at home kits, those cases aren't reported.
So now we know it's like 200 and some odd cases this month. Now, how many have necessitated hospitalization? I mean, what are the increases in the health?
The hospitalization rates have remained fairly low. I don't have the accurate number for right now, for exactly this week, but they've hovered. We've seen 4 or 5 cases. Again, those are the extreme cases. We tell people, you know your symptoms, don't wait. If you start experiencing severity with breathing, please seek treatment early. Don't try to like rough it out at home, which is what a lot of people tend to do.
So what we want to tell people is it's going up.
Yes.
Significantly going up. It's a trend we are looking at. If things get a little hairy, we'll let you know. Hairy is not an expression I use lightly. But if things get a little difficult, we'll let you know. The hospital, the healthcare system isn't nearly overwhelmed compared to the thousands of cases we had a month. Having 250 cases is not 100% of anything that we used to see. It is basically a very low number coming from a very low month, June, which was, from what I heard, was one of the lowest months of both deaths, hospitalizations, and infections. So we have a new variant. We have to watch out. People who are immunocompromised need to watch out all the time anyway, because the flu kills more people now probably than COVID by far. So you have to put that into context and not let the panic set, and we start talking about, we got COVID again, and it's 250% from last month. And it sounds really dramatic. I'm not trying to tone it down, and it's never been my style. But I do want the community to know that the health department is looking at these numbers, that if there's cause for concern, really cause for concern, there will be notices going out, notices telling you what to do. We're not at this point right now. We're watching it. It's not as serious as some people make it out to be. I think I had someone in my office say that he saw on TikTok that there were thousands of new cases in Yuma, and I said, well, there's no thousands of new cases in Yuma.
We would have been here a lot sooner. And you made a good point. The point is to raise awareness, certainly not panic. And we're here to give people information so they can make the best choices and keep their family healthy. And so that looks different to different people depending on their health status, if they live with an elderly relative or whatever the issue is. But yes, if we start seeing those numbers trend up, we definitely will do some public messaging. Right now, it's the same. Have that awareness, get tested. We still have those free tests at the library. This new variant, you get symptoms right away. Before, you had that window between 1 and it could go all the way to 15, 20 days. Now it's 1 to 2 days after exposure. So that's how effective that is. So if you're around somebody, you'll know.
All right. Is the new variant still, is anything being done about putting it in those later, what do you call booster shots?
The booster shots, we expect a new one to come out towards the end of September that'll incorporate the new variants. And again, right now, all we're doing is the bivalent, meaning that it incorporated the 2 latest strains. But the new one is expected to be here sometime towards mid-September, end of September.
And I want to, again, thank the Yuma County Department for having those clinics out in the outlying areas in South County. They're having one Thursday, I think. And it's been a godsend, pretty effective about the way that the guys are all dealt with this. It's prevention. And we talked about this with emergencies, and I think we need to talk about this with illness, sickness in the community. The more we prevent them, the better off we'll be. We shouldn't wait until they happen to deal with them. We should be vigilant all the time. I think that the assumption that we're done with COVID is a wrong assumption. We're not done with COVID. COVID isn't done with us. I mean, it's already the flu of the past. COVID is the new flu. So we're going to have to live with it. People need to understand that and take care of themselves, just like they would if they were looking to not contract the flu. Messages, learn to live with it. It's not done with it. Okay.
Anything else?
No.
I don't have. I'm happy to answer questions, or if not, then I will take my leave.
I do have a comment. We had well, I don't know what to call it, an item in the agenda last time that talked about the U of A extension and, you know, the fact that they're looking at trying to coordinate their move to a new location. I want to make sure that you know from us, at least from me, that we're not thinking about, you know, doing a reset of our priorities. I mean, to me, the priority is to build a facility to do.
They're just on hold, right? She knows, I think she knows about it.
Okay, well, I
She's
just
in
want to
the
make
loop.
sure that everybody else does. You know, we're not resetting the priorities, we're not doing anything. I'm not looking forward to moving the funds from anywhere to anything else, personally. Now, that's just my opinion, and it's just one member of the board, but I'm not looking at, I mean, I believe that the health department is an essential part of the services of this county, and that's what we are said, you know, we're elected to do. So just wanted you to know, just in case you didn't know, because I think you knew, but, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd stick with, are we still doing that, was it the fecal matter test with the U of A? Or where they were testing?
wastewater?
Yeah, the wastewater.
Yeah, that's still happening. It
That's still
winded
happening?
down quite a bit, and ADHS is monitoring that directly. They had awarded a grant for the university to be able, and it was with Mr. Byerly, and he was coordinating that down on his shop. But that is continuing. But again, we know it's here, and unless we see a high level, you're not going to see those notices because we just want people to have that awareness. And again, our ultimate concern is not overwhelming the healthcare system, because then we need to step up and make sure that we work with preparedness and emergency management to make sure we look at the clinical resources to be able to support that.
When you see a spike, call Tony first. And, you know.
I'll make sure everybody knows by the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
I'll go ahead and recess the Yuma County Board of Supervisors and convene to Yuma County Board of Equalization.
Nobody wants to stay?
I hope I didn't scare them away.
Did,
See?
always.
Board of Equalization discussion calendar, sitting as the Yuma County Board of Equalization. The board will hear the following item for discussion and action as appropriate. Number one, acting regarding petition for review of real property valuation for Granite Yuma LLC properties, assessors parcel numbers 197-23-004, 197-24-001, 197-24-002, 197-24-003, and 197-24-004. And who do we have from staff?
Just I think the assessor's office would set this up. Getting ready. Just a quick overview. Granite Yuma has asked for a review of the property valuation of multiple parcels that it owns, as you just read. Barry Olson is here to represent Granite. The assessor has reconsidered its valuations and I believe is offering a lower amount, maybe not as low as Granite has proposed, but that's where we stand at this point.
Do we hear the applicant first, or do we want to hear comments from the staff? Well,
Go ahead and let Jerry go first.
we'll hear it. Yeah, okay.
Good morning, Barry Olson,
Morning, Barry.
350 West 16th Street, Suite 407. I don't know, does staff have a map of the property as part of its presentation?
We have it here.
We have it here. Mhm.
We have an aerial picture and
That-
the 4 parcels in the middle of the desert. 5, it's actually 5.
All right, thank
Looking
you.
at them right now.
All right, that assists. So that'll give you your bearings on the property we're talking about. So the concern that Granite Yuma has with the assessor's proposed valuation is the original, this property has been consistently valued at $6,000 per acre. For 2024, the assessor proposed a threefold increase to over $17,000 per acre. Now, from working with the assessor's office and having discussions as to where the $17,000 came from, I understand the assessor was looking at some of the development that was occurring on the South County. In particular, there's the Fortuna Road corridor. As you know, with the expansion of Fortuna Road south from 40th to 48th, there's development on the east and west side of Fortuna. So that is prompting development in that area, higher values. I get that. Also on the South County, there's some tracts, 10 acres, 20 acres that have developed sporadically. You've had those zonings before you, or land divisions. This property that you see on the aerial that you have is in an area that I call kind of a no man's land. It basically is east of SR 195, north to County 14th Street. And as depicted on the board, these parcels haven't had any development. There's no real access to these properties other than dirt roads. There's no paved roads, no utilities. The properties, although close to Yuma, are somewhat distinctively remote because of the location on the other side of SR 95. Also, these properties are pretty much surrounded by large tracts of state land until you get to what I'll call the hall parcels to the north. And those of you who are familiar with development in Yuma recognize that the state, it's very difficult to get the state to release the tracts of land that it has. If it does, it's a long process. So those large tracts of state land really hamper development of these parcels, because for these parcels, in my opinion, to economically develop, you're going to need some surrounding development where there is cost sharing for roads, utilities, and expansion. Furthermore, these parcels are restricted in the fact that they're within 1 mile of the Barium Goldwater Range. So as the board's aware from prior policy and precedent, you're restricted to 2 to 5 acre lot sizes, not 6,000 or 10,000 square foot lots that you see in the city that are more commonly developed. So you have those impediments to development for this area, and Granite Yuma and the other owners don't have any immediate plans for development. So in looking at the comparables for this area, there's a letter I sent to the county that was dated August the 14th. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review that, but there's one parcel that's right in the middle of these parcels that sold in April of this year to an entity called, it's 40 acres, to an entity called Sparky 8 LLC, and that was $2,500 per acre, basically $3,500 per acre below the prior assessed value. That's an arm's length sale, gives you an idea what the market is. Now, we will accept a continuation of the $6,000 per acre assessed valuation, but I wanted to point out this comp that is $3,500 below what we claim is the assessed valuation. Then if you start looking at some other parcels closer to SR 195 and County 14th that have visibility, access, there's a parcel 197-21005. It's owned by South Mesa LLC. It's a 50 acre tract. That remains at $6,000 per acre, but it is better access, it's closer to utilities. It's also closer to the hall development to the north. It's more likely to develop. We contend that is a very, a similar comp with better attributes that further justifies keeping the Granite Yuma property at $6,000 per acre. Then there are a couple of hall parcels that are scattered in here. There's a parcel, I'll call it 002. It's 160 acres. That is just under $5,000 per acre. But as those of you who are familiar with development in the Yuma area, the hall companies own a substantial tract, and that property is being held, will be developed in the future. But Mr. Hall, he's a experienced developer, he'll obviously have the resources to extend roads, utilities to the area. And then there's another parcel that he has that is right next to Ocotillo. It's probably the next phase. That's only that's assessed at 10,125 per acre, but it has much better attributes, much closer to development than our property. Typically, the assessor and I, we've had a lot of these cases over the years, and this is, I think, only the second time I've been before you on the Board of Adjustment. This is just a case where when you look at where this property is situated, I don't know how you can come to a conclusion that increasing the value above the 6,000 is justified by where the property is located, and more importantly, the comps of the properties that are better situated than the Granite Yuma parcels. Glad to entertain any questions that the board may have.
Wait, so just a comment. So we have a parcel that was assessed at 6,000 last year, and now it's assessed at 17,000.
Correct.
And the explanation for it is in the packet. I mean, we've got pretty lengthy explanation on what. But the owner doesn't see that. He sees development happening way in the future. He sees a lot of problems, a lot of expenses to even develop the property, and he doesn't understand why it would go from $6,000 to $17,000 based on the value given to properties around it that are situated in different locations and have a better chance of getting developed. That pretty much it?
Yes, and I don't disagree with the assessor's valuation. Granite Yuma had another parcel that we didn't appeal. We accepted the valuation that is closer and in the area where Fortuna Road is being developed. I explained to the client that that made sense. I understand that, so we don't contest that, because we see that area as being the next area to be developed out in the foothills just because of the infrastructure. But these parcels, they're tucked into that state land envelope that make it just almost impossible to develop anytime soon.
So the assessor has taken a lot of this stuff into consideration, and they have suggested a lower price, which is 12,000 something. So there is a movement on the side of the assessor understanding or trying to understand the situation surrounding these properties, which may not have been before that. But you still believe that the 12,000 something is still too high and does not?
Well, especially based on the recent sale of the other property.
Well, that, and then when you look at the Hall parcel, which is right next to Mr. Hall's, I mean, he has all the utilities there, the roads there. He's planned that to go over there, and he's at 10,125. So that's still, the proposed solution here is still $2,000 over a property we can all recognize is much more conducive to development than these parcels.
I just want legal, because we've gone through this very few times, but there are some options available to the Board of Equalization that, there's, it's not like, well, I used to think we used to be able to do almost anything, but there are some things there that you simply can't do without justification. So what are the options that the Board of Equalization have in a case like this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the statute allows you to accept or reject the proposal for the assessor in whole or in part. Those are your options.
So we can accept it the way it is at 12.7, reject it, and set a new one.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Mr. Chairman.
We don't set it. It goes back to the assessors.
No, we said it.
No, you said it.
Oh, we said it, okay.
That's what I wanted to know.
How did they arrive at this valuation based upon what Barry has presented to us?
Assessors?
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the staff.
I think they're ready to tell us.
They're ready to
Thank you,
Barry this up.
Especially based on the reality of what we see.
Good morning.
Thank you. Lisa Marie Stanfield, Yuma County Assessor's Office. We did a lot of, checked our resources. We went ahead and reached out to the different entities that may have some effect on the values of these properties. We went ahead and reached out to MCAS, Berry Goldwater Range, the city of Yuma, the county, just to find out what kind of restrictions there would be in that area. And as we all know, the property values in Yuma County overall, they're not staying stagnant. We've seen a growth everywhere.
With the exception of this recent sale where it was significantly less.
Yes,
And it's adjacent.
Yes, and to address that particular sale, with the circumstances that we looked into, it was not a arm's length transaction, okay? It wasn't offered on the internet to any buyer for that amount of money. And because of the Arizona Commission Corporation, we realized that the agent that actually purchased the property, or the member of that LLC, was also involved in the legal aspect as far as some of the paperwork that went through on this particular parcel. Okay, so we couldn't use that as an arm's length transaction, a market deal, okay? Unfortunately, the other comparables that were used to support their $6,000 requested value actually came from parcels of land that are they're agriculture. So they do have a different value per acre. There was 2 of those. And then the other one is actually, you'll have to forgive me, I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Fine.
Can I ask a question?
You're just
While you're doing
informing
that, aren't most agricultural sales in Yuma done off of the internet? They sell them to individuals. I mean, there's very few that actually get listed and sold, right, Barry? Everything is conducted within that community itself.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to get comps. A lot of our land in Yuma is sold like that. Correct, Barry?
I mean, we do have sales that we.
But very seldom do we have ag land actually go on the market.
Well, Supervisor Lyons, I would agree with you. From my experience, what typically happens is the common thing I see is a family lets somebody know that they're looking to sell. And a lot of times what you'll see is longtime farm families or families that inherited the property from their relatives. The first person they'll go to is their tenant, who's usually a local farmer or one of the Salinas folks that we see all the time, and say, I'm looking to sell my property, look into it. So we've seen much more of those sales recently than some. It's rare that we've had a sale on ag land get listed where you see like a for sale sign go.
Correct.
We used to see that, but in the last 10, 15 years, less and less of that.
I believe we have 2 ag listings right now that are way out east, but they're subject to water requirements.
Well,
everything else is done personally.
Yeah, and the other point on that, and I appreciate what staff's saying, that I recognize that Arizona has different valuation techniques of ag land, but ag land you can make money off of. You can farm it. This property here doesn't have an irrigation right. It's
no rights.
It's no, you can't farm this property.
Right.
So this property even has to be viewed as basic. I look at it as like the land we have way out by Dayton and Tacna, where that property goes for, if you can find a buyer, $3,000 to $6,000 an acre, depending on the size.
Right. Thank you, Barry, and I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, and then the other parcel that we had, the other.
Mr. Chairman, and real quickly, why wouldn't it be comparable to the surrounding properties, for example, like the Halls?
Okay.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And that's something that needs to be looked at, okay? And we understand that. This particular area, we took and just made it its own area here and north of the freeway, okay? So it's going to be, because they're going to have different characteristics than the properties west of it, okay? As we know, okay, and I'm really familiar with that area because I live there. And I've seen the growth, and it's crazy. But 2-acre parcels are going for, $50,000, $60,000 in that area. I mean, right across the way from where these parcels are located. We understand that.
Even with dirt roads.
Yes, yes, they just had a sale of a 20-acre parcel, I believe it was, and it came out to like $19,000 an acre. And it had no utilities, and they are gonna go ahead and develop it. We know that this is not gonna happen tomorrow, and that's why we've made the decision to bring it down to $12,750 an acre, and combined, we're looking at saving the taxpayer I think it's $1.3 million for any kind of development fees or any kind of hoops that they have to jump through. We just need the board to understand that just because they're surrounded by state land doesn't make them immune from the market conditions.
Makes them more valuable because
That's what-
everybody will have a view.
Absolutely.
Actually, no.
Absolutely.
They do not.
Dealing with the state.
No,
no,
no.
okay.
It detracts from the value.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, no,
Well,
being surrounded by
significantly.
state.
I'd love to have
We
state
don't see
land
it,
all
we don't
around
see
me.
it as a.
Anyway.
Well, anyway.
And I
I'm ready,
know
I'm ready.
in speaking with other taxpayers that actually live out in the middle of nowhere, they don't want a whole bunch of development around
It's
them.
much more difficult to get the state to participate.
Oh, it is.
Well, I think I've listened to everybody. I read the presentation, and I can tell you right now that, to me, it may not be still worth $6,000, but it is not worth 12 or 14 or 16. To me, it's in between the $10,000 that they paid and the $6,000 they used to have. I think the gradual increase of that I can see that anyway. I mean, I can see that the value of the property is going to go up simply because the development is going around it. Not that fast and not that steep. To me, it'd probably be in the $8,000, $9,000 range if you increased it. That's what I would go for.
Tony, I think that you need to take into consideration the other property values out there, even though it was recent. And my point was, with talking about the agricultural exchanges and sales, is that lots of other sales occur like that, but also need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, well, they're going to set the market. I mean, when sales happen, it sets the market, and that's
Especially when it's coming down.
I
And
know.
I think I understand where the mentality comes from, that, hey, look, we need to adjust the property values. It's just a steep adjustment that I think could have happened over time as things happen nearby, because if it's a moving market, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. And eventually, even dealing with the state land department is going to be something worth doing if you can get the value for the land.
Yeah.
So, again, Mr. Chairman, I'm
And
ready.
again, I would also like to bring up the fact that even though the land values are reflecting what the market is doing today, it's not going to affect their tax base because it's still following the Proposition 117. So it's just a way to let the public know what's happening in Yuma. And if that $6,000 value has been stagnant for 10 years, that's not a true reflection of what the market's doing in Yuma County.
Well, it
And
was
it's not
for a
fair to
while.
everybody else. I'm sorry?
It was for a while. There was no
Yes.
development for a while. There was 4 or 5 years that simply land didn't move at all anywhere. It actually went down in value. So again, I do believe that there's a process that we go through where, land has to be assessed, because that's the assessor's job, assess land, appraise land. And, I think that we don't necessarily have to wait until someone sells something to appraise it, to weigh the value. I mean, this is a state that's notoriously, I mean, your rules are archaic, and there are so many rules to assessing, to appraising, that it's very difficult to follow them all without running afoul on some of them. And I'm not saying that you run afoul on this one. I'm just saying it's pretty steep. It's noticeably steep. And catching up, the lack of movement in 10 years in 1 year, it's not gonna please anyone. And I think that's where they're coming from. And I can see where they're coming from. I've developed a lot of properties around state land. It's very difficult to do, but not impossible.
It's just
San Luis
difficult.
proves it. San Luis, Arizona can prove it, but it's very difficult to do. And I think an increase in land value is justified in this case. It just may not be justified at the level that you guys have done it in 1 year. And you've done a great job. I mean, you've done a lot of work to get to this point. Right?
Any other questions for staff?
So I'm going to first move that we reject the appraisals proposal, and we set another value if we can. Do we have to do that?
Mr. Chairman, no, there's not a process or procedure like that. The statute just references you can either adopt or
So
refuse.
what I'm going to do is make a motion that we assess the property at $9,000, which is a little below what the other property sold nearby, but still not 12 or.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear, Tony, would you retract that for 1 second?
Sure.
Barry, can we hear from you again?
Thank you.
Remember, when you're ahead, You quit.
I don't know if I'm ahead, but this property, once this property gets into what I'll call the development sphere where there's planned development, it should pay its fair share. But right now, to increase this property above the 6,000, I think is penal, because this is just vacant property. Property that's being developed, there's stress on roads, stress on infrastructure. I agree, your taxes should go up and you should pay your fair share. But when you have a tract like this that's not having any impact on the county at all, it's just sitting there and there's no plans to develop it, and it's going to take quite an effort to get it to develop, I just think is unfair to increase this anything above the 6,000 that it's been assessed at, because other properties that are developed, that's what you need to look at and tax appropriately, but not property that just doesn't have a chance of being developed anytime soon.
Here's my answer to that. Yuma County has maybe 10, 11% of private property that can be developed. And it sits there because there's no incentive to develop it if no taxes are being applied to it.
Well, Mr. Chairman and Tony, I think they would love to develop it, but there's a lot of hurdles, right?
Well, like I said, I'm not saying that. Look, allowing it to stay at $6,000 would mean saying, when you develop it, we'll appraise it. But when you develop it, it will appraise itself. It will sell for whatever the market will take. So it's not an issue of what you do with it. It's an issue of what you're not doing with it. What you're not doing with it is not doing anything because it's too costly to develop it. So that's how commercial property sits around for years. There's no assessment that really assesses the value of that property properly. It just sits there. And it sits there because there's no incentive to do anything because you're not paying any taxes on it. It's really easy, right? I just bought some land in Welton and I let it sit because there's no assessment on it. $6,000 an acre is an assessment. I'm not saying it isn't a true assessment, but it's not a very incentivized assessment if it stays at $10,000 for 10 years. At $6,000 for 10 years. So maybe I went a little high, I would admit. Maybe it should be 7, maybe it should be 8. But it should be something, because we can't not just sit there and acknowledge that we're going to let property sit.
About $1,000 increase, Tony.
I think we need to make a point that you can't just sit there.
Will you withdraw?
There was no second, so there's no point.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we propose $7,000 an acre.
I'll take it. I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments or discussion?
I would, Mr. Chairman, I'm sitting here looking at this and it is away, but looking off of 80, they're probably within a quarter mile of development that is actually happening now.
Yeah,
And then Tenney with, I think it's Rydell, that's got that subdivision that's going in east or west of Fortuna. That's going to put them probably within a quarter mile of roads with that development. So I'm just putting this out there. They're not as far out as it seems, I think.
And I'll tell you what, this doesn't preclude you guys from coming back next year with a higher assessment that will be more reflective of what's really happening close by to the property. But I think at this time, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do is send them a message. You can't just stay at $6,000 forever. As a developer, you need to start looking at how to develop property, as opposed to sitting there with some properties that are surrounded by state land, which I know is difficult, but not impossible.
Ian, I just sent you the surrounding areas. Is there any way to get that on the screen?
On what?
Maybe. I'll work on it. So you can see and compare the area so that Supervisor Simmons can see the state land and what they would have to go through in order to get it.
No, I'm not saying there's not state land. I'm just saying that development is closer than
Than it looks, yes.
it looks here.
Until you've had to deal with the state, especially.
I know what they're like.
Especially trying to cross the land.
But, I'm just saying, I have no problem with the 7 that's recommended.
He has no problem with the 7.
Staff? Go ahead.
Sure.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning.
My name is Tony Holzer. I'm the Chief Assessor. I think a couple of the points that may be a little gray right at this moment, when we value vacant land, we compare it to vacant land. We try to group these properties based on their potential, what they could be used for. Ag is not a comparable property to something that can be subdivided and put into homes. The values that we came up with originally was 17,000 an acre. We took a look at it. We realized that these parcels have some legitimate restrictions. I can't argue with anything that Mr. Olson said about those. And we took that into consideration and reduced those values by, I think it's $4,250 if I'm not mistaken. So we knocked about $360,000 out of each one of those parcels to compensate for the restrictions on development based on their locations, based on the limitations to parcel size, taking all of that into consideration. The sale that Mr. Olson seems to be hanging his hat on was an in-house sale. It's not an arm's length transaction. I understand that an attorney ended up buying it, but the attorney was representing the company that sold it. So we can't take a sale like that into consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, then how do we value it then higher than land that is closer that's going to be developed faster?
There we go.
I don't think we have it that way. I mean, we're valuing it less.
Halls was 10,000, right?
That is a completely different market zone. We would not, it wouldn't be fair, then it wouldn't be fair to.
You wanna come up?
No,
Yeah.
look, before you begin, let me tell you this. My suggestion, his suggestion, it's a sort of a shot across the bow. This can't remain this way for over 10 years. The development is happening. They, meaning the Granite Company, needs to acknowledge that their land value is gonna go up. No matter what they do, if they don't do anything, they still go up. And my suggestion of $9,000 placed it close enough to 10 so that I felt comfortable with it. But the idea was to let them know, look, it's not gonna stay this way. Maybe it won't go to 17 in one single shot, which is what happened in this case and what raised eyebrows. And yes, I understand that the assessor's office worked and reduced it by $4,500 or $4,700. So I understand that there's an acknowledgement that maybe we went down there too fast. So I was trying to get to a middle ground point where you understand, look, this is not what it's going to be evaluated at. It's not what it's going to be appraised at, because there's going to be a lot of sales and it's going to be comparable. And one of these days, probably soon, the county assessor's office is going to come and say, well, I mean, you know, you're surrounded now, it's a quarter of a mile, the Brightdale properties are a quarter of a mile, your assessment is not gonna be 10, 12, whatever it is, 15, 17, whatever it is. I just want them to acknowledge Granite, and through Mr. Olson, to acknowledge the fact that it's not gonna sit still. Yes, I understand that we cannot do comparables. I understand comparables, and I understand that, it's not agriculture anymore because it can be used for development, but it's not development yet because it needs to go through the state land department. So it'll take years before they can get there.
And with an assured water supply, I might boot.
And so it's going to take years for it
Which is an additional challenge that everybody is facing.
Yes.
Which I think we need to acknowledge. It's just not going to stay the same. I thought 7 was a little low. I thought 9 was more in line to what I thought. But, I think that we want to send a message. You're not going to be able to stand in there and just not do anything, because it's going to go up in value even if you don't do anything, because the market is driving it. It's not you doing it. It's just where you're located at. And
Just didn't want to be inequitable to everybody else in that zone.
yeah, I understand
So-
that. I think Mr. Olson can pass that message on, because I think it's obvious that what we're trying to do here is not trying to stay where it was and not trying to move him too fast to where
Correct.
it isn't yet.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Okay, so
Mr. Chairman, just so Darren, you can see,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know there's
significant obstacles. It may be within line of sight, but it is far removed.
It's fine. I think that we send in a message. We're not leaving it as it is, but we're not, pushing a price that isn't there yet. It will be one day, pretty soon, probably.
And like I said, it's, with state trust land, you get the right bid, they're gonna take it.
Yeah.
So that could disappear
And-
tomorrow.
If they'll offer it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but I mean, it can disappear.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the fact that the county assessor's office worked so hard on it and made their points. I understood their points.
we understand that. And I know we have a first, a motion and a second, but, and this is just for the board. I heard comments about, when landowners are paying their taxes and it's just sitting there and it's going up. But then when we have someone that wants to develop and we get neighbors and a whole bunch of people around them not wanting them to develop, that's on the board. So I just want to make sure that if we're, the comments that we make, we got to be careful, because if we're saying they're paying taxes, well, I think we want them to develop at some time. Well, we need to let them. So just
That would be the argument you make when you come in with a development.
No, well, we
Right
have.
now,
We
right now
have
we need
seen
you
it.
to do something.
We have seen it, but I'm just throwing it out there. All
Here's your
right.
throwback for next month.
Throw back for
So we have a motion to reject.
No, to set it.
Reject the proposal.
Attorney, we don't have to reject it. It's all one motion.
7,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys coming over to
Thank
visit.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, staff.
Very be careful when you walk out.
I'll adjourn the Yuma County Board of Equalization and reconvene as the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. Moving on to discussion regarding legislative issues, item number 1. Alejandro.
Chairman, members of the board, Alejandro Figueroa, Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs
Thank
Director
you.
for Yuma County.
Too generous.
So I'll start off with the state's tax revenue dropping below projection again in July.
Sit on it forever.
Revenues amounted to $1.11 billion, down by 5.1% compared to the previous year. This led to a projected loss of $13 million below the fiscal year 2024 budget's revenue forecast. The decline was driven by mixed results across major revenue streams like sales tax and individual income tax, which showed losses, while gains in corporate income tax and insurance premium tax categories partially offset the losses. Sales tax growth has slowed since March, with July's growth at 0.4%, resulting in a forecast loss of $30 million due to flat retail collections and a 3.5% decline in restaurant bar collections. Individual income tax collections were 11.8% lower than the previous July. Corporate income tax grew by 44.2%, collecting $21 million above forecast, and insurance premium tax revenue grew by 25%. Fiscal year 2023, the state revenues were $79 million above forecast, pending final spending data review.
That's when I send my taxes into the state.
You have an average for the year?
No, I do not, Supervisor, unfortunately, but I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Moving on, the CSA, in order to support local and state conversations around expenditure limitations, has published the County Expenditure Limit Resource Guide. The guide includes a wide range of resources, including expenditure limit and detailed overview, background materials, and key takeaways from previous county propositions, relevant Attorney General opinions, and other resources on expenditure limit elections and reporting. The guide can be accessed on the CSA's website. Moving on to the federal portion of the update. Last month, the U.S. Department of Treasury released an interim final rule for the bipartisan state, local, tribal, and territorial fiscal recovery infrastructure and disaster relief flexibility act, also known as the Cornyn-Padilla Amendment, granting entities more flexibility to invest funding allocated under the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA, and state and local fiscal recovery fund. Expanding the current eligible uses of funds, public sector revenue, public health, and economic response, premium pay for essential workers, and water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Additional uses now include emergency relief from natural disasters, surface transportation infrastructure, and Title I CDBG projects. In order to allocate the state, local, tribal, and territorial fiscal recovery funds to provide emergency relief from a natural disaster, a county must follow a two-step process. One, identify a natural disaster that has already occurred or is expected to occur. And number two, identify emergency relief that responds to the physical or negative economic impacts or potential physical economic negative impacts. The IFR also outlines several requirements in order for counties to allocate, funds to surface transportation and Title I CDBG projects, including that a county cannot exceed an amount greater than $10 million and 30% of the state and local fiscal recovery fund allocations to such projects. There's more information on that on the CSA website and NACO's website as well.
Alejandro, before you move out of that, the surface transportation infrastructure, where it says invest in some, is it in line with U.S. Department of Transportation program? So it just can't be for whatever the county feels they can use it for transportation. It has to be in the U.S. Department of Transportation program?
It has to be, had already been considered a project by the U.S. Department of Transportation, yes.
So it just isn't to be used on any county road. It's got to be used on roads that are,
yes,
that have a U.S. planning use. Okay, got it.
Mr. Chairman, that will conclude my presentation for today. As you know, the state legislature is not in session, and Congress will be coming back into session later this month.
Any questions for Alejandro?
Are you going to continue with like the international stuff?
I don't have, Mr. Supervisor Reyes, I don't have an international update today.
So the invitation to go to Mexicali to open up the fair, those kind of things are like.
They've changed the dates on us. That's why I still don't have a firm date in place.
Yeah,
they changed the dates.
Okay, I just wanted to know if there was anything upcoming. And obviously that legislative meeting in, CSA meeting in
Flagstaff.
Have anything on it at all? I mean, I know that the Supervisor Lyons sent us sort of I made my reservation type of thing. It was a thing, and I think I made mine, and it was like charged ahead of time. It was like a no refundable.
Yeah.
Deposit. Is that common? Is that common to everybody, or is that just happened to me?
No, it happened to all of us. Whoever registered, you had to prepay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I got this request for the invoice, and I said, well, I haven't even been there yet. So I said, well, they charged it to the guard already.
From CSA or?
The CSA, yeah.
Yeah,
the
CSA hotel.
For the hotel.
Yeah, I thought CSA was going to handle that. It was going to be kind of like, okay, you make the reservation, you show up, you pay, right? You don't show up.
Yeah.
No, you had to prepay.
You had to
I thought it was
prepay
like,
this one.
what's going on? So
to get your
basically, it's
attention.
prepay?
It is, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Reyes, it is prepaid, but I think you have 72 hours to cancel before the date of the arrival.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought, but
There's a cancellation
there's
policy in
already a
place.
charge, and I need an invoice.
Well, they
receipt.
charge like.
But, okay, here's the story. I got a P card, right? And anytime that anything is charged to that P card, I gotta provide a receipt. So they asked me for a receipt, and I'm going like, what receipt for what? And they said, well, you have a $500-something bill. And I said, from what? Well, it's from the hotel. So I didn't realize that when I made the reservation that you were going to prepay it. So I'm just, it happened just to me, and then I said, no,
All
it
of
happens
us.
to everybody.
All of it.
You know, you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel so special now.
You don't have a room. You don't have a room.
I don't have a room. I'm actually in the car.
That's right, you don't have a room yet.
He's gonna share.
Let me know if you get a receipt.
You and Martin are going to be
Okay,
talking.
go ahead, Alejandro. I better move out of this conversation.
Yeah.
It isn't going anywhere.
Well, that would conclude my first item on the agenda. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to move on to the.
Yeah, all right, let's move on to item number 2, discussion and possible action to authorize the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Director to publish a request for proposals for a government affairs firm to provide professional lobbying services for Yuma County.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ian McGahey, County Administrator. I'll do a quick overview here, introduction, and then hand it back to Alejandro. So as you know, the 15 counties in Arizona are basic subdivisions of the state with elected officials providing local accountability of state mandated functions. Counties are strictly bound by statute, as our friends in the county attorney's office frequently remind us, and accordingly acts of the state legislature have a major impact on what we are able and not able to do as a local government. The County Supervisors Association reports that 12 of Arizona's 15 counties currently engage the services of a lobbyist outside of CSA and ACO, and that number just went up to 13 because Yavapai County just reported contracting with a government relations firm. So this table shows a few Arizona counties and the number of staff that they have for economic development and intergovernmental relations positions, as well as whether they engage a lobbyist. Here in Yuma County, of course, we have one employee who's standing next to me who handles our economic development and intergovernmental affairs. So a lot to handle. He's doing it very well, but engaging the services of a government relations firm will augment the work that he is doing. And we did not list Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima counties who engage multiple lobbying firms. I mentioned Yavapai. So right now it is just Cochise and Yuma who do not have a contract. Yes.
You do understand that Yuma 2000, it includes the city of Yuma, who has a government relation firm that represents them in Phoenix and represents them in
That's correct. Yes, Supervisor Reyes, they have High Ground for state issues and HAM for federal issues, so two different firms.
They have two different ones.
That's correct.
We used to have one, so it's not new to me. I mean, we used to have one in the 30s and the 40s.
That's what I was going to say.
I got ahead of it. Before I got this, you paid here for 1930s, 1940s. I wanted to acknowledge that myself. There was a point in time where we felt like the manager can handle that. And it was the manager's idea to drop the representative. I always thought, and it's because I've been to those meetings where, one of the counties has a representative and they know these people and they talk. I just went through a governor's office meeting not 6 months ago over water.
Yeah.
And the guys from, I think it was not Mojave, but some of the guys, they already, they had high ground. Was it?
Mojave and La Paz.
Yeah, they had their lobbyists there, and it's tough to talk over them anyway to begin with, but you can realize that they know these people when they set it up, and so you feel like you're like a little outside looking in on some of these issues, and I think that Yuma County has issues that go well beyond Yuma County, military issues, agricultural issues, water issues, border issues. Those are almost state and federal stuff that we get involved in personally, or we get involved in through Alejandro or to you. I think that's placing a lot of strain on continuity, because that's what it takes in this particular field of politics. Continuity. You have to have the same message. You have to have the people that deliver the message be the right message deliverer. So I don't have a problem with that. I just have a cost question. Okay, so if we go out to bid, or if we go out because we need to get a request for proposals, what are we looking at in terms of budget?
Some of that will be determined by the discussion held today when Alejandro gets into the draft RFP and what components will make that up. So we're not looking to list a dollar amount, not unless that's board direction. In terms of up to or exceeds, we could certainly put that in there. I don't believe that's in the draft RFP right now, but that's one of those considerations we'll be discussing.
All right, okay. The reason I brought it up is I just had a text message from Matias Rosales. We were talking this morning about the expenditure we have at the Yuma Greater Metropolitan Planning Organization and how that is a $50,000 that isn't going to be spent there. Because that was a decision of the Greater Yuma Port Authority, I think at their last meeting. So the point that I'm making is I don't mind. I just like to know a little bit more about what it's going to cost us and where we're going to get the money. I think we have the money. But
sure, we do have the money in a couple different sources. Originally, I was thinking of using funding from an unfilled management analyst position. But there's also funding already in the budget, $800,000 of legislative impact. And so budget office thinks that's the more appropriate source.
Don't let them know. Just tell them we're going to hire them for the lowest amount possible with the highest
amount. Obviously, we're not going to be spending that amount of money.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there's a couple different sources. Both of those fall under admin control. So once you get the go-ahead, we
The
can.
second question to me is, what about getting someone to help Alejandro with some of this stuff? I mean, it splits it halfway. I mean, when we need to maybe look at a second position that handles some of this stuff, so that he gets to do a lot more, either economic development or legislative affairs. I think saddling with both, it's just a full-time job, each one of them. We may have to consider that in the future, in a future meeting, not today. Today, we're talking about outside representation lobbyists.
And that'd be something to look at in a future budget discussion, but as you see, just in those numbers of economic development staff and intergov staff, yeah, he's carrying a heavy load. The asterisks under intergov denotes those duties are shared by either the county manager and our other staff in those counties, so. Yeah, we're probably closest to Yavapai in terms of our current approach, where they've got a full-time economic development person, the manager does their intergov work, and they just brought on a lobbyist. But yeah, you can see other, Mojave's another comparable county with 3 economic development staff and a lobbyist, so.
Yeah, let's have the presentation. Let's have the presentation.
So I'm almost done. So what would the lobbyist do? And you kind of hit a lot on the Supervisor Reyes. The lobbyist would assist Yuma County by having a seat at the table where decisions are made and developing and nurturing key relationships with elected officials throughout the state. Having our own lobbyist, as you mentioned, allows for advocacy on specific issues that may be outside the approved legislative agendas of CSA and ACO, but also allows for advocacy on positions that may run counter to the other counties in those organizations. We've seen that with water, with biosolids. A lobbyist could assist the board in the development of the board's legislative priorities while also providing advocacy and support for other county elected officials for issues that don't run counter to the board's priorities. So really, in closing, engaging a lobbyist would send a clear message to other counties, municipalities, and stakeholders that we are serious about the issues that could dramatically affect the future of our county, the residents and businesses, and the quality of life here, to make sure that we have a seat at the table where decisions are made. So Alejandro is going to go over some of the considerations, talked a little bit about where the funding would come from or the overall cost. Some of those considerations are triggered by these. Would it be a year-round engagement, or would it just be when the legislature is in session? Do you want to focus on the state legislature? Do you want to focus on federal issues? We talked about water, border issues. Do we want this firm to legislate or advocate for other elected offices when their issues are not in conflict with the board priorities, or is this position just going to focus on board priorities? And then length of engagement most likely would be 1 year with an automatic renewal if the board sees fit. But with that, I will hand it over to Alejandro to go into the nitty-gritty of the RFP.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you go back your last slide, a seat at the table. I've always said that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Right? And so.
We're always in the menu.
Having somebody there to represent us is extremely critical.
I agree.
And, just, because we have it here as who's going to benefit, but then the other one is considering, I think, all elected officials, if we're going to have someone that represents Yuma County, they need to represent Yuma County. We can't say it's just the board and leave the other elected officials. So we got to make sure that it represents whole Yuma County. Because I won't support someone just going to support the Board of Supervisors. I just don't think, we don't have enough things unless we're going to go for monies, but I think we need someone that really represents Yuma County as a whole.
And I have a different opinion. I think the city of Yuma represents the city of Yuma.
No,
they have their own
well,
lobbyists,
I guess
and I don't particularly think their issues are our issues.
Yeah.
Issues of the county are county issues. They may have the same water issues, but they are not the border. They're not, they tend to feel like they have their own agenda. I don't want to impose our agenda on them, but I don't want our agenda to be their agenda. They have their own lobbyists, they have their own issues. I don't mind.
Just for clarification, when I said other county officials, I meant
Yeah,
Assessor, recorder,
the
treasurer.
recorder, and that's what I meant, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so did
That's what
I.
you meant, fine. I thought you were talking
Are
about
you,
cities.
are you with
No.
the city now or
No,
what?
I'm not.
Okay,
No.
I said Yuma
I
County.
just- yeah.
Yuma County is like.
The whole Yuma
us,
County.
The board and the other elected officials.
All the
'cause
elected
we have
officials.
other elected officials.
Hell, I want them to represent the board.
See what you started, Angela.
See, that's why they went away with it, in the thirties when they had it.
Yeah. Well, the 40s, it worked well. We were like the lower party thing. The city of was like 20,000 people. We just walked all over. Anyway, go ahead.
You guys.
So if you have the time and the willingness, I can go over the draft RFP. And seek your feedback if you have any.
Oh, we need somebody.
Oh, that's a,
I kept it to the intent, the scope of work. Those are the two sections. We can work on the formatting of it later on. But as Ian said, I mean, the first question is if we would like the lobbyists to work on the federal and state issues, or just focus on state issues.
There are some firms that do both. However, I would probably consider looking at a proposal from those that do both, but then also with a consideration, like it says on the page before, the county reserves the right to split the duties or responsibilities, right? Or award to multiple vendors. I believe keeping that there is critical. There are some who are resident in DC, which is great, and they can help us with military, water, border, et cetera. And then others that are here local that specialize in the Arizona legislature. I don't think we want to restrict until we see the proposals, consider the firms, and then make a decision based upon what they present us. Yeah.
Perfect. And just for clarification purposes, some other counties, what they do, especially Maricopa and the bigger counties, is that they have the lobbyists report to the Board of Supervisors on what they're doing, what they're working on, and seek the board's direction when they have other elected officials come forward and ask for, to represent them, the sheriff's office, the assessor's office, the treasurer's office. There's a reason why we have the CSA and ACO, and sometimes, most of the time, they work together very well. Sometimes they have different opinions on different items.
that's why you have ACO and ACO.
Yeah, but I think if that person's, obviously, he's not gonna come and say, I'm gonna support just the sheriff and not the board. I mean, that wouldn't be wise. I'm talking about things that they need help on. And so, I mean, that's what he's gonna get paid
Build,
for.
for example?
Yeah, he supports
Would be
those.
one aspect.
So,
I think your comment goes more to before they represent anyone else.
They would come
They
before
come to
the
the
board.
board and say, look, the assessor needs help with this, which is okay if we do it. That's, I think, more of the question that you ask, isn't it?
Exactly.
All right. So it's not a matter of they can't help them or they won't help them. It's a matter of having to come to the board first with their problem or whatever, or with a request to act on their behalf, which I think the chairman is not really comfortable with. He says he should represent everybody, and that's why I said no. I mean, if we hire the board,
Subject to approval from the
final
board.
approval from the board, and that makes it working for the board. The lobbyist is going to work for the board first, and then if they want to represent, the treasurer or something, they're going to have to.
Excuse me, can we ask the treasurer what she thinks? She's one of the other elected officials.
You to come to her meetings.
This is the first time I've heard of this. I've just been thinking about it right now. There are times when I would like support, and I would also, we do have ACO, and I work very close with ACO. I'm on their board. And there are times when ACO is so overwhelmed. And sometimes CSA helps ACO and ACO helps CSA. They do work together. We have noticed in the past few years that there's legislation that is not proposed by us, but in turn we need to oppose. And in the end, ACO missed it. It's hidden. Things are put in at the last minute, things like that. And ACO is so overwhelmed with our proposals that they're having a hard time with our oppositions. And so those are the times when Yuma County, or I do, or our ACO, we put the county's firms in there to help fight us. So there are times that I do use the other county's firms in conjunction with ACO and our oppositions of certain treasury things and other departments and other elected officials, not supervisors. So I do support this, and if there were anything, I would love to work with them. Yes.
And should you have to get permission from us before you work with our?
I don't think it's so
I
much
would
permission.
say no.
I don't think it's so much permission, Lynn,
As to letting us know
as
that
to
they're.
advising us on a county policy.
Got it. Oh, okay. That,
We know
I can
what-
do that. That I can understand, and I don't have any problem with that.
I think as long as we know. I
Yeah,
mean, he doesn't, I don't think the lobbyist needs to come over here and stand in front of us.
And get
say,
permission.
Get permission.
No.
I think it just run it by you guys or Ian and then.
Shoot it out to the board.
Yeah.
Just so we're aware of what's going on with our.
Deconflicting is a good
Hell
thing.
no.
I
I
didn't
want
say.
him to come over to ask permission.
Mr. Chairman, I think
We might wanna
I think
ask
I would
for
describe it
permission.
as deconflicting
I agree.
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah,
Through-
make sure that, yeah.
Through our county manager.
Yeah. I would look at it as every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 2 months, or something that.
Or keeping us advised of challenges.
And I think Ian does a good job of reporting every week, sending out reports, so that could be something included, so.
But anyway, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
I've listed some of the issues that the firm or firms could potentially help us with.
Oh, yeah, I would take elections out of there. Though.
I don't know what's happening, but it's not.
I mean, election day, election early voting, redistricting, you want to put that in there for the lobbyists to deal with? I don't have any problem with general administration, healthcare, infrastructure, criminal justice, community services. That's pretty much what we do. But elections, I don't think it's something that you want your lobbyists involved. I don't know.
Right, and the draft does address the fact that the lobbyists would come to the county administrator, who would then inform the board on any updates. The other, thank you. Just the final.
But that there may be additional petitions or requests.
Right. It is included in there.
Is directed by the board.
Assignments directly from the director or the county administrator.
Duties is
Yeah, I think
directed
leave
by
it
the
open,
board, yeah.
Just don't want that. I mean, I do
There's
it.
no hearings with elections, there's a lot of bills, so just to be, let us know.
Well, if that.
Make recommendations, only take positions on legislation when directed by.
So why don't you?
And also very important to coordinate the efforts set forth above with other assigned organizations such as CSA, ACO, and NACO. We're seeking a lobbyist who's experienced in state relationships as well as, Washington DC experience. Again, we can split that up and, seek 2 different firms and we have to. And obviously, maintain strong and constructive relationships with legislators, not only with the state legislators, but the governor's office and several state agencies as well. And lastly, the proposed selection process with the selection committee being part of it. The county administrator and myself think that it would be a good idea for a member or members of the Board of Supervisors to be part of the selection committee if that's what the board desires to do. And if that's the case, I would like to, see if there's a couple of members or a
Volunteer?
member that would like to be.
I'll volunteer.
You too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just
Oh,
choose
yeah.
somebody.
You need someone from the 30s.
Supervisor Lyons and Supervisor Reyes.
Wait, about me.
You can't do three.
Tony's got the
Three makes it a
history
four.
back,
I
you
got
know.
the history and the Wapo here got the, the kind of.
Okay, okay.
Tony,
El Wapo.
Tony.
El Wapo.
El Wapo.
El Wapo.
And
Tony
and
has
the
a lot of history.
Yeah, I know a lot of history. You're the one around that used to have a lobbyist.
Mr. Chairman, and if I may follow up with, would you like the recommendation from the committee to come back to the board with a few different options? How would you like to do that? Or you just have one selection?
So what do you want the selection committee to do? Select a person or?
Look at the proposals, consider them.
Yeah, and I think obviously
Yeah, it's gotta
you're
come
gonna
from
find out if one firm can do both of them and the amount, and then if.
What
if
they'll
we have to
charge.
split, or I think with going through that and find out, and then come back and say, well, this is what we found and, or what we think it's good with the committee's help, so, and then. to
I
us.
think the final decision always rests at the board.
Yeah, I mean,
It's going to
it
be,
comes
the
back.
committee will recommend, 1, 2, and 3, and then the board will choose between those two, I think, with an explanation.
Our hope for the timeline is to have somebody in place by November, late November at latest, so they can start helping us out with the next session.
Okay?
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah, that it? Let's move on. If you stay there, somebody's gonna ask a question.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion?
No,
We need a
hang
motion.
on. I'm just thinking of everything that's.
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. You
And
Stand
direct
there so
staff.
people go start thinking about what to ask you.
Go
Where
forth
did you get that
and
suit,
multiply.
I would say our first meeting in November.
So draft the,
Yeah.
send out the RFP
gotta
at
get
the end of
started,
the, at the middle of this month. or
Tomorrow.
something.
You gotta
And
get
them
started
back
tomorrow.
by the- Yeah, get started tomorrow, tonight.
That way they've got basically 30 days
Mm-hmm.
to engage before the session starts. We can meet with them before Christmas to establish our priorities and give direction on what we see coming forward. They will by then have had the opportunity to review some of the
Discussion and possible
conversations
action.
within the different committees at the legislature and advise us as to anything that may not be on our radar and how it affects us. But that gives them 30 days to engage and be prepared for the session to start.
I'm
Okay.
happy to get any more
Done?
feedback. I'm actually asking for
Moving
feedback,
to the
so.
next one.
Oh, I think that.
Is there a motion to continue, to direct the staff to go ahead and proceed? You already have a motion needed?
No, we can just direct staff.
Directing staff. Are you going to direct it?
Presentation.
Thank you, Alejandro. All right, moving on to
Mr. Chairman, Alejandro, may I make a recommendation or a suggestion that you maybe would, because with the DC people, it's a little bit more challenging as far as advertising and engaging, just because they're not looking through. That may require some additional time if we choose to go with a different group.
I think we discussed that at the committee level.
Yeah. Just telling you, you may need to look into how to do that efficiently.
Tony needs to leave at
11:15, so whatever you do, well, you can take your time whenever you want to, but Lynn got to start with the report.
Go ahead, let Tony start.
All right.
No.
No, 'cause we have
I'll
an
be here. I
executive.
want to hear what you got to say.
Let's,
Oh,
can we
we
dispense
do.
with current
Okay,
events
let's
and
do
just
it.
go into
Yeah.
executive session? Mr. Chairman?
We can do that. Is
Yeah,
that
let's
okay?
go to
go to-
executive session first.
We'll do,
It's just a spring.
That's why they wanted me to do my.
Clear the room.
I had 3
I'll
days.
go ahead and recess that business conducted in executive session is confidential pursuant to ARS 38-431-03C.
Since 1930.
Since 1930.
Okay, so we're in item number 1 of the discussion and action items after the executive session, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in the matter of Southwest Gas Corporation against Arizona Department of Revenue, Yuma County authorizes and directs council to accept Southwest Gas Corporation offer. You know, and that should do it, right? We don't have to go through all the details. Huh?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. No, that'd be fine.
All right,
All right.
so that's my motion.
There's a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, that's it, huh?
All right.
Okay. We'll go back into regular session and we go to the event calendar events, right?
No,
You don't want to do that? I wanted to say something.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, don't tell me when you have problems crossing the border because the Century line doesn't work, why it doesn't work. I'm not gonna report it. All right, thanks, man.
Tony, a tissue.
Adios.
Tony,